Good morning guys, welcome to my unboxing and review of the high-grade GM Sniper. This is a 2017 Premium Bandai exclusive release that I got for $17, which does feel about right for being a slightly older, fairly basic UC high-grade. This is of course going to be heavily based on a 2017 standard release, the high-grade GM Ground Type, which I've heard very good things about. I've never actually built it myself, but I have built a couple of kits fairly adjacent to it in the high-grade Ground Gundam and the high-grade Blue Destiny Unit 1. So this is mostly going to be a recolor of the Ground Gym, with the base mobile suit essentially being identical but just being in green instead of the Ground Gym's signature like tan and brownish orange color scheme, in addition to a modified arsenal featuring the long-range beam rifle here, which you've seen in master grade form in the high-grade GM Sniper 2 White Dingo team, which I have made a video on. But I think that kit also just took that weapon from the master grade GM Ground Type from like 2000 or whatever. So yeah, I'm expecting this to be a fairly simple, basic kit that will build up in a very kind of expected way, because this is acting like a palette cleanser video before I take a look at a big special kit to commemorate 1,000 subscribers next week. So of course, getting right into the box here, we do have I think it's like a CG render of the GM Sniper here, of course in a monochrome army green, being a P Bandai release, and in very typical P Bandai fashion, there is going to be next to nothing on these sides of the box. So let's get right into it. Inside the box we will get 3 bags of runners, which does seem about right because this is a fairly basic, again slightly older UC high grade, and a grunt suit at that, so it's not going to be including all that much in the box. And of course, in addition to those bags, we will be getting this standard P Bandai style manual with no art or anything in black and white. Of course, we will be getting our parts list here, which does look fairly simple, which is to be expected, and then getting right into the build. So if you've built any slightly older UC high grades, you'll know exactly what to expect. Tons of hollow spaces, heavy reliance on polycaps for joints, but it should give about average articulation across the board. Some decent parts layering with things like the chest vents, but that do need color correcting stickers on them. We do have some joints and some layering present to allow for ab articulation and things like that, but nothing too incredible. The head is only going to be 3 parts that sandwich together, and then you get into your arms. Very simple. Pretty much all the frame you see is all the frame you get with the elbow, and the rest of it being reliant on polycaps or having hollow spaces. Then you build up your other arm, and then once you assemble the upper body, you move on to the feet, which if you've built any of these kits before, like the Ground Gym, the Ground Gundam, the Blue Destiny Unit 1, this is all going to feel very familiar to you because it's going to build up in that very familiar basic way, including with having the beam sabers stored in the side of the shins like that. Then you have the legs all layering up together with plenty of polycaps. I don't expect them to be any kind of issue given how, I guess, simple the GM Sniper's design is. And then you get into your waist here, which is fairly basic. You get into your standard backpack there, assemble the full GM Sniper, and then move on to the arsenal, which is the main unique feature of the GM Sniper here. Of course, coming with the long-range beam rifle as its main weapon, which is just going to be 2 halves that's sandwiched together. I do expect this to be plenty color accurate, and you're going to need to do a lot of painting in yourself to make it color accurate, very similar to the master grade version of this. You will have a nice jewel sticker to replicate the scope of it, attach the stock of it, and then the barrel, secondary handle, etc., talking about attaching the special trigger finger hand to actually grip onto the weapon, and then moving on to this, which I think is the net gun or something like that, that was included with, I think, the standard Ground Gym. I'll have to double check. I'll throw up a correction on screen now if I'm wrong. You will, of course, get your 100mm machine gun. That's standard with a lot of these one-year war ground type suits. And then, of course, you get into your short-style beam sabers stored in the calves, attaching your standard beam saber effect part to them, and then building up this shield, which can double as a physical melee striker weapon, as well as having a kickstand to provide cover while it's using the long-range beam rifle. And then you will get your color guide down here, all in text in black and white. As for the contents of the bags, we will be getting 8 runners inside the bags, which does kind of fall in line with what you would expect for a more simple, basic UC grunt suit. Of course, in addition to those runners, we will be getting this small color-correcting sticker sheet for some details across the kit, for things like those green details you saw wrapping around the chest vents, for things like small head camera details, the small white triangles seen on the chest, etc. You'll get this sheet of sticker-style decals with just numbers on them. If you want to designate this as a specific unit inside of a squad of ground gyms or something, you can do that. And of course, you will be getting this jewel sticker here for the long-range beam rifle. As for the runners themselves, these runners were printed in April of 2025, starting with PC002 for a set of 1/44th scale polycap joints for all across this kit. This should do an alright job of facilitating articulation for this kit, given its rather kind of basic structure and not super over-the-top geometry. Runner A here from the original Ground Gym with a design date of 2016. You'll be getting a multicolor runner here coming in 3 different colors. You'll be getting the army green that the majority of this kit's going to be in for parts parts for things like the feet, the torso, a part for the shield, parts for the head, parts for the lower torso, parts for the legs, the backpack, etc. You'll be getting a primer gray here for some accent colors for the kind of bolts in the knees, some extra vent/thruster details, and some thrusters for the backpack. And you'll be getting a single part up here in a clear cyan for the visor and the head. Runners B1 and B2 with this lower right section shared between the two in the same army green as runner A for a number of additional armor parts. For parts of things like the sides of the legs, parts for the shield, parts for the skirts, parts for the arms, the backs of the hands, the shoulders, etc. Runners C1 and C2 in a primer frame gray, still from the GM Ground Type, going to be a bunch of frame parts and weapon parts for all across this kit. You see all of our parts for a shield down here, the parts for the 100mm machine gun up here, joint parts for things like the neck and waist over here, a bunch of different hand parts for things like standard holding hands, trigger finger hands, and open expressive hand, etc. Then you get a bunch of joint parts over here and here, with the duplicate part being the bottom right part of the runner, for duplicate parts for things like the elbow joints, parts for the feet, etc. And for the only unique runner included in this set, in a primer frame gray, we get runners D3 and D4, 4 parts for the two, I think, unique weapons for the GM Sniper here. Again, I think the net gun was included with the GM Ground Type, I'll have to double check, but you get the parts for the net gun down here, and the unique parts for the prototype long-range beam rifle up here. So yeah, not a whole lot included in the box, but it should still build up to be a fairly satisfying typical grunt kit, so I'll see you after the build. Alright, welcome back. Here is the high-grade GM Sniper, snap-built, panel-lined, and lightly painted. And yeah, this is, I feel like, going to turn out to be kind of the average modern high-grade, kind of pre-Witch from Mercury era, but I'm getting ahead of myself. First off, let's get right into the build. So the build for this kit is, as you would expect, incredibly average for a modern but not super modern UC high-grade. So this kit is going to be mostly hollow spaces, relying heavily on polycaps for its joints, with most parts just consisting of 2 parts that sandwich together with some joint parts or polycaps in between. What you see is what you get for joints, and there is very minimal inner frame besides what is visible. The vast majority of this kit is relying on polycap joints for articulation, and only a few joints are PS plastic on plastic proper joints, with every joint apart from the elbow, the neck, and the wrists relying on polycap joints in some way. Most parts of this kit build up incredibly quickly, and you can definitely bang out the assembly of this kit in like 10 minutes. In total, including like cutting out the parts, cleanup, and assembly, not counting painting, this kit took me maybe 2 hours to complete, and I wasn't trying to go particularly quickly. So there is some layering in certain parts to facilitate part separation, like the vents in the chest being separate parts, or the studs in the knee for like the bolts or whatever. They're supposed to be like jutting out of that area, being part separated and kind of protruding through holes in the actual knee armor. The leg does layer up in a fairly satisfying way, although there are still plenty of parts, and many of the parts in it are still reliant on polycaps, including the connection from the knee into the lower leg. That connects via a polycap, which shouldn't pose that much of an issue right now, but maybe a couple years down the line the kit gets a little bit floppier or something. It's just a thing that you accept when you decide to build one of these slightly older UC high-grade kits. So yeah, while some parts are incredibly simple, such as the head, which is literally 3 parts, 2 parts for like a front and back half of the head and 1 part for the visor, the rest of this kit is pretty much average in terms of being involved for building up your high grade. So yeah, this is definitely a very simple kit that you can bang out very quickly in an afternoon. So yeah, this kit's pretty unremarkable, and if you've built high grade kits from like the 2010s, you'll know pretty much exactly what to expect going into this build. So yeah, coming back to a spinning in the booth, let's get into aesthetics now. Starting as usual, I will go over the color correcting stickers and anything you'll need to paint in yourself before I talk about my opinions on this design. So I did end up using most of the color correcting stickers. As you can see, I did not use the 2 for the wraparound stickers going around the chest vents. I tried using one of them. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't get it to go on properly, and it looked horrible, so I just ripped it off and repainted it. So yeah, the sticker for the chest vent may be something you would want to repaint in yourself, because this wraparound sticker is really annoying to deal with. Apart from that, I think the stickers on this kit are mostly fine. So sticker 1 is going to be on the front of the 6-tube missile pod here that I accidentally called the net gun in the unboxing, got it mixed up with the net gun actually included with the high-grade GM Ground Type. So yeah, this sticker is going to be this gray sticker with the red dot and the black kind of detail down here on the bottom right for the front of the 6-tube missile launcher. Sticker 2 are going to be the chest vent wraparound stickers that I did not use. I don't know how sacrilegious this is, but to actually get this shade of green to match the rest of the GM Sniper, I used a mix of Zaku light green and dark green from the Xeon Gundam marker set. So yeah, don't know how sacrilegious it is to use Zaku colors on a GM. Sticker 4 is going to be the 2 gray trapezoids down here at the bottom of the shins to show that the frame is kind of poking out through the kind of knee piece and give the illusion that is a continuous frame piece between the bolts on the knee and this part down here by the ankle armor. Sticker 5, you get two of them. They're going to be the tiny black and white triangles on the sides of the shins where the beam saber holders are. Sticker 6 is going to be the large black and white triangle on the front of the chest. And stickers 7 and 8 are going to be the metallic cyan head cameras for the front and the back of the head there for that really tiny rear head camera. For parts that you're going to need to paint in yourself, this kit is also very kind of average 2010s high grade in that the base mobile suit itself is actually mostly color accurate. You don't need to do much painting of it at all to get it color accurate, but the accessories are very color inaccurate and they feel like they dropped the ball on that. So like I mentioned earlier, I did paint in the outside of the chest vents to replace the color correcting sticker because I really did not like how it applied properly, and I did paint in behind the visor in chrome to just help the details pop. And on the backpack then, there are two color inaccurate details around these two circles in the backpack. It needs to be in gray to show that it's like a layered thing with backpack frame, so I used Dispace Mecha Gray marker for that. And then the insides of the thrusters need to be in red, very typical like kind of high grade detail to not be color accurate. Don't really blame this kit for that. So I used a white undercoat and then painted it red using Dispace Mecha Red marker. So yeah, that is all the color inaccuracies on the actual base mobile suit itself, but the accessories are a very different story. Starting with the least egregious one that has a color inaccuracy because the 100mm machine gun is actually entirely color accurate, is going to be the shield here with the kickstand. The top bar here needs to be painted in gray, so I did end up using the Mecha Gray paint marker from Dispace. The 6-tube missile pod that you saw earlier is very color inaccurate, with all of the actual like missile pods themselves need to be painted in a... The color's a little bit weird. It feels almost like a mint gym color with a slight tint of blue to it, so kind of like a very light teal. So I did end up using the light blue Gundam marker from the MSV Gundam marker set, and I think it turned out all right. This definitely contrasts really nicely with the gray of the actual handle and all that, and contrasts really nicely with the green of the Gym Sniper itself. And then you have the long-range beam rifle here. So it's really unfortunate this is color inaccurate. I don't think we've actually ever gotten a color accurate version of this specific rifle. I know we got a color accurate Gundam the Origin version of it in the Gundam FSD and long range prototype beam rifle set, but for this actual proper UC long range beam rifle, I think we've got it in the Master Grade, but the Master Grade Gym Ground Type, that was horribly color inaccurate as we saw in my review of the Gym Sniper 2 White Dingo team, and in high grade, I don't know what other kits this has been included with. You can let me know in the comments below because I'm not entirely familiar, but I'm pretty sure all of the kits that include this weapon were like P Bandai. I don't think many standard releases have it, if any at all. But anyway, all the green you see here is color inaccurate out of the box. You need to paint it in yourself. So the barrel here, this little detail poking out the top of the barrel, the secondary handle, the, I guess, stand here if you want to prop it up, if you want to have your Gym Sniper kind of propping it up on like a rock or something, the side of the body of the rifle here, this little tube poking out, the scope itself, all of it is color inaccurate, needs to be painted in green. So I think the manual specifies that this is supposed to be the same shade of green as the Gym Sniper itself, but looking at the promo material for this kit, it is notably a different shade of green, so I don't really know what is going on with that. But yeah, I did use mainly Zaku dark green to get this shade of green, and while you do get a really nice jewel sticker for the front of the scope there, the back needs to be painted in yourself. I used a metallic red Gundam marker. So yeah, very color inaccurate, and it's kind of a shame that I don't think we've ever gotten a color accurate version of this specific weapon. So yeah, the accessories do have color inaccuracy aplenty, and you will need to spend some time repainting those if you want it to look color accurate and presentable. So as for my opinions on the base mobile suit itself, I do really like this design. If you see my video on the high grade Blue Destiny Unit 1, you'll know that I really love the 1 Year War kind of Ground Federation suits. I do really like the Ground Gym in particular, and I do really like the color scheme of the Ground Gym a lot more than this one. This is very green. I do wish this used at least 2 shades of green to have a two-tone effect. Like, I'll compare this with the Blue Destiny Unit 1 for the height comparison in a bit, but even that kit, which is incredibly blue, used 2 shades of blue to give it a little bit of variety. This kit is relying entirely on the kind of little bits of frame it does have poking out to break up the very monotone green color scheme, which does make sense in universe, as this was meant as a kind of, I guess, stealthy unit operating in the jungle to hide, find a good vantage point, and either do recon or provide sniper fire support. So while the color scheme makes sense in universe, I do wish they at least found a way to spice it up a little bit, either with some kind of like, maybe like a water slide camo pattern like we saw with the, I think it was like the high mobility Zaku surface type from the Gundam the Origin series, or via using 2 tones of green, because this kit is rather plain in that regard. So I'm probably going to repeat this in the conclusion, but if you like this design but don't really like the color scheme, I would highly recommend the normal standard release GM Ground Type or the Blue Destiny Unit 1 in place of this. One other thing I want to point out is I did use these stickers for the unit designation markings on the shoulder here, and as you can see on the slightly darker shade of green on the smaller numbers, the border is very visible and very apparent, so that's just something to keep in mind if you are thinking of using these numerical stickers. While they work on something like the GM Ground Type or the high-grade Ground Gundam where it has a lighter tone that it is being applied on, this kit really has the borders be apparent and look not great, which also extends to the shield here, of course, like you saw earlier, although the borders are a little bit less apparent because they're cut a little bit closer to the actual decal itself. For a quick size comparison, here's the high-grade GM Sniper next to a standard-sized high-grade being the high-grade Blue Destiny Unit 1. So as you can see, both being based on a very similar base, with the Blue Destiny Unit 1 being a modified Ground Gundam and the GM Sniper here being essentially a palette-swapped GM Ground Type, the two are going to stand basically in line head height with each other, and you can see what I was talking about with the Blue Destiny Unit 1 using multiple tones of blue to provide a little bit of a sense of, I guess, variety in its color scheme and a little bit of a gradient across the kit, as opposed to the GM Sniper here, which is just one continuous shade of green. And of course, for your accessories, here is the GM Sniper with everything it comes with. So yeah, this is a mostly complete accessory spread coming with pretty much everything you would want or expect this kit to. Starting as usual with your hand options, you will of course get the 2 standard high-grade holding hands you see on this kit that would have come with the standard GM Ground Type. You get this special holding hand for use with the long-range beam rifle. Because of the grip being on the back here near the stock, you do need a special like bent wrist holding hand in order to get it into natural firing poses. And of course, only for the left side, you will get an open expressive hand here, / a rifle support hand for the long-range beam rifle. For your melee options, you will of course get 2 beam sabers stored in the sides of the leg. So if you just pry that back piece off, the beam saber is of course going to be stored inside here. You can take it out and wield it like you would a normal beam saber. So I'd mentioned this in my video on the high-grade Blue Destiny Unit 1, but this beam saber is notably shorter proportionally than other beam sabers to facilitate being stored in the leg. So that does look a little bit more different in terms of posing, but it's still a beam saber at the end of the day. It's not terribly interesting, especially for use with the GM Sniper. I don't think you would really want to use it with the beam sabers, but in case you do, you will of course have these 2 standard beam saber effect parts in clear pink from the venerable SB13. I think I forgot to go over this in the unboxing section. I just put it off to the side and forgot I had it, but yeah, this will of course come with your standard UC high-grade beam saber effect parts. For your defensive option then, you will get this shield, which is identical to the shield that came with the Blue Destiny Unit 1, the Gundam Ground Type, the GM Ground Type, etc. So yeah, this is a shield with a kickstand, so you can have it like just kind of on the ground and have the GM Sniper kneeling behind it, using it as cover to fire the sniper rifle. You can fold up the kickstand to attach it to the arm. This adapter is on a secondary arm to allow the shield to swing forward for use as a physical melee weapon. I don't think I'll be posing the GM Sniper using this as a physical melee weapon because it's, again, the GM Sniper. I don't really think it works best in poses that would have it striking with the shield, but it's something you can do if you want. And for your ranged options, you get 3 different options. For the least interesting of the 3, you get the 100mm machine gun that we've seen a million times on a ton of other different high grades. It comes with the usual fare. The magazine is removable and replaceable with the magazines on the side skirts there, but in both cases, when you remove the magazine, you're left with a really ugly like ridge that the magazine used to mount on, so I don't really think it looks that great to actually take the magazine off. In addition, you have a secondary handle here that pops out if you want to wield the weapon two-handed. The stock can fold back like so. So yeah, you can wield it two-handed, but I think with how small and compact this weapon is, it does feel really awkward wielding it two-handed, but it is a thing you can do if you want. But this weapon does come with the standard GM Ground Type, so I don't really see a reason to pose this kit with it because, well, if you're getting the GM Sniper, you're probably going to want to pose with one of its 2 unique weapons over there. So you'll see this in a token pose in the poses section, but not really much beyond that. For your heavy ordnance then, you will get this 6-tube missile launcher here, and this does look pretty nice, especially if you repaint in the actual like missile pods themselves. You get this really nice color separation with the gray bracket here going in between the 2 parts to break it up. You get some nice color separation back here with the exhaust back here being a different color from the light teal of the actual pods themselves. Unfortunately, the doors do not open or articulate to show that the GM Sniper is actually firing them. It can just pose holding it as if it's about to fire. And of course, the handle can fold back like so, or forward like so, for getting it in different firing angles depending on what you would want. And then you get to the main star of the show here, the long-range beam rifle, which does look pretty much identical in sculpt to the one seen on the Master Grade GM Sniper 2 by Dingo Team, just kind of shrunken down. Unfortunately though, this is largely going to be 2 halves that sandwich together, so yeah, there's going to be a fairly nasty seam line running down the middle of the weapon here, including down the scope. It's not super noticeable on the gray part, but on the scope, especially if you repaint it, it is still quite noticeable. One thing I did forget to mention is that the actual base mobile suit itself does avoid seam lines for the most part. The only really kind of bad seam or mold line that I noticed was going to be on the top of the leg here, where you get a pretty nasty mold line wrapping around the top. I don't know how it comes across on camera, but it is fairly visible in person. You see the mold line there. But pretty much all of the rest of the seam lines on the mobile suit are disguised as detail lines. The long-range beam rifle will do its job for being a, well, impressive, large, long-range sniper rifle with a secondary handle that can go from side to side, although I don't know about actually gripping it, because I feel like it would look a little bit awkward to do so. And most of the time wielding this two-handed, you're going to want to use the open expressive hand as a rifle support hand on the actual like barrel here to support it. So yeah, plenty of accessories with the GM Sniper, and comes with pretty much everything you would expect it to, minus maybe some duplicate hand option parts for like an open expressive hand for both sides or something like that. So getting into articulation now, this kit is essentially, being the average 2010s UC high grade, is going to have essentially identical articulation to any kit that uses like that full set of polycaps that you saw in the unboxing. So if you've built any of these UC kits from that era, then you could probably skip this section because the articulation is going to be largely identical to those kits. So of course, starting as usual in the head for an upward look, you do get a fairly nice upward look with the neck on a hinge facilitating that. For a downward look, it can look down into its own chest. You get some minor side to side tilt. And of course, you can 360 the head about the ball joint. Just be careful because the chin of the GM Sniper will collide with this raised collar section. In the shoulders then, there is a polycap joint that swings out, facilitating a maybe 30-degree shoulder swing. The shoulder armor can't really move independently of the arm. It can do it a little bit, but nothing crazy. And the arm can raise to the side 90 degrees. You can, of course, 360 the arm in the polycap. You get full rotation in the upper bicep. A double bend in the elbow will give you a 180-degree bend. And the wrist is on a ball joint, which will do ball joint things. Although notably, the range of motion is much larger than on kits with like polycap wrists. So yeah, this is a PS plastic on plastic joint that is designed to allow for a much wider range of wrist articulation, which is pretty nice. In the torso then, for a forward ab crunch, you get a fairly nice ab crunch, although the back does pop out of the polycap ball joint in the waist fairly easily, so just be careful. For a back crunch, you get a very minor backwards ab crunch. For side to side, you get some fairly minor side to side crunch. And of course, you can 360 the torso about the ball joint, although do note it will start to slightly pop out of the waist as you do so. In the backpack then, the thrusters can be slightly adjusted backwards and forwards, although that feels less like intended articulation and more like just a bit of play in the way it connects. In the waist then, for the skirt armor, they do come together on the runner, but of course you can clip them separately to have them on separate ball joints, and they can raise up a full 180 degrees, although the lack of detail in the back does make them look pretty unsightly to do so. The side skirt armor can rotate around and swivel up about 45 degrees. And of course your back skirt is going to be fixed in place. The hips does have a bit of a hip pivot mechanism where one leg can swing down and the other leg can swing up, as you can see there with the right leg articulating as I'm just moving the left leg. But yeah, it is fairly minor and not going to enhance your articulation all that much. In terms of your kicks then, for forward kicks, you can get just over 90 degrees. For side kicks, you can get just about 90 degrees. And for back kicks, you can get maybe 20 to 25 degrees. You will get some rotation in the upper thigh. You will get just under 90 degrees outwards, 45 degrees inwards. A double joint in the knee will allow for pretty much a full 180 degree bend. The ankle armor can swivel up and down as necessary. For your ankle articulation, for upward toe raises, you get a really nice 90 degree upward toe raise, which is kind of crazy. The articulation is significantly better than what I remember from most other high grades of this era, so that is one part where the GM Sniper excelled, / the base GM Ground Type, because again, they use the exact same kind of joint system. For a downward tilt, you get a very nice downward toe dip. There is some heel-toe separation, allowing for a very minor toe raise, like so. You can see it's slightly angling upwards compared to the heel. For side to side, you get 45-degree side-to-side tilt. And for rotation, you can, of course, 360 it about the ball joint. So articulation in the GM Sniper is mostly good across the board, which is pretty typical for what you would expect from these polycap high grades, although there are some parts where it looks pretty unsightly, where parts will start to detach from each other, namely in the torso, as you articulate them to their extremes. The one part of articulation where this kit really shines is, of course, going to be in the ankles, with a much wider range of articulation than I was expecting, and that should allow for some really nice, natural-looking grounded poses. So see the articulation in action and some poses. So getting the high-grade GM Sniper Sniper into a bit of a spin, starting with the usual running and gunning pose. Here it is running, kind of twisting its torso to fire the 100mm machine gun off to the side, and this demonstrates a few things. One, being based on the high-grade GM Ground Type, this will of course look great in dynamic poses on the ground, where you could emphasize the kind of ruggedness of the actual mobile suit itself, the stockiness, and its, I guess, designated purpose of operating on the Earth. Two, the actually very nice amount of articulation in the legs, particularly in the ankles, makes poses like these look surprisingly natural, to the point where I might actually consider having it on the shelf doing a very similar pose. There's another pose later on where I have it kind of strafing to the side, firing the long-range beam rifle off at a target. I think that might be something better to pose this kit doing rather than firing the 100mm machine gun, because while I would consider having the GM Ground Type firing the 100mm machine gun off to the side, if you're getting the GM Sniper, you're probably going to want to use one of the two unique weapons it has that don't come with the GM Ground Type. I know the 6-tube missile launcher did come with other GM Ground Types, like I think the Slave Wraith Custom came with it, but it doesn't come with the standard package, so something I would consider having this kit using. As it is now, the 100mm machine gun isn't really something I would consider using this kit with. It just seems like kind of a waste if you're deciding to get this package in particular, but this pose does look great, and it is something that I might consider having this kit do on the shelf. So this is normally where I would say to cover all my bases. Here it is crouching, but actually this is less to cover my bases and more kind of one of the better ways to pose this kit. Here it is kneeling on the ground behind its shield deployed with the kickstand, firing the long-range beam rifle upwards at a target. So this is really great for the GM Sniper. This is probably the way that most people, including myself, are going to pose this kit on the shelf, either this crouching pose or a pose similar to it, or a standing variant of the same. You probably want to have the GM Sniper using its long-range beam sniper rifle, which does look really great on this kit. The only downside I will mention in regards to how it looks actually posing with the long-range beam rifle is the lack of an extreme neck hinge, like something like the Master Grade Dynamis has, that allows it to kind of crane the neck to actually look through the scope of the weapon, is not present. So you can't actually have the GM Sniper's head looking through the scope. What you can do is kind of tilt the head and kind of hinge the neck forward a tiny bit to give the illusion at certain angles that it is actually kind of looking through the scope. So you'll need to make use of certain like perspective tricks and stuff like that once you put it on your shelf, but you can have the illusion that it's actually looking through the scope, because in reality the articulation just isn't there for that, and I wouldn't really expect it to be from the sheer amount of kind of auxiliary joints and things that would need to exist in this kit to actually make that happen. So this pose does look really great in certain angles, and it's probably the way that most people are going to pose this kit, including myself. This really is how the GM Sniper was kind of meant to be, in my opinion, which is why a pose similar to this was kind of up front and center in the promo material for this kit when it was released. So, of course, getting the kit into the air, here is the GM Sniper up here on my Action Base 7, with the 6-tube missile launcher kind of firing downwards. I have it posed here in a wide-legged pose, like it's kind of descending from a leap or something while firing the 6-tube missile launcher downwards. So what I like to do with these kinds of really heavy ordnance weapons is to emphasize the heft and the power of them. I do like to have these weapons kind of wielded two-handed. I think you saw that in my Master Grade GM Sniper 2 White Dingo Team video, where I tried to have it kind of bracing the Hyper Bazooka over its shoulder with an offhand. This weapon is not really conducive to that, both in terms of the sculpt, where it's kind of awkward to get the hand positioned over any part where it looks like it's realistically bracing itself, and in terms of the kind of articulation of the wrist itself. You would need an auxiliary hinge to make the wrist go 90 degrees to kind of brace it against the side of the weapon, because the shoulder articulation isn't there to get the hand over the top of the weapon. So this is definitely a weapon you were going to want to use one-handed. You'll see a pose later where it's in a wide-legged stance, just firing it one-handed over the shoulder. That's definitely the way the weapon was clearly intended to be used. That's how it looks most natural. So a two-handed pose of this weapon doesn't look great, and having this kit in the air also doesn't look the greatest. Again, being based on the GM Ground Type, this kit looks its best on the ground, where it can really put some, I guess, kind of deliberate motion into its posing with both feet planted on the ground. Again, emphasizing the niche that this mobile suit was clearly designed to fill, operating on the ground rather than in space like some of the other gyms are. So while this pose looks alright, it's probably not something I would consider having this kit do on the shelf. So here's the GM Sniper with the beam saber, recreating the box art for the Blue Destiny Unit 1. So I'll leave the spinning while I get into the conclusion, because it's a downward beam saber slashing pose. You know what a beam saber looks like. It's been included in so many different kits, so I don't really have much to say about its inclusion here, other than you probably don't really want to use it because, again, it's the GM Sniper. You probably want to have it using a long-range weapon rather than one of the weapons that comes with the standard GM Ground Type. So in conclusion, the high-grade GM Sniper is about as average a 2010s high-grade as it gets. It has a fairly basic streamlined build, heavily reliant on polycaps, but without any super over-the-top geometry or proportions. The polycaps do an okay job of facilitating this kit's articulation and holding it stably. In terms of color accuracy, this kit is also incredibly average, with the base mobile suit having fairly good color accuracy with only a couple of understandable details not being color accurate or covered by the color correcting sticker sheet. But that color accuracy does fall apart when it comes to the accessories, which are heavily color inaccurate, a trend that was kind of annoying to deal with many 2010s high grades and is very much present here. In terms of accessories, this kit is also very average, coming with pretty much all of the weapons you would expect it to, but missing some nice luxury to haves like some duplicate hand option parts for everything. In terms of articulation, this kit is actually surprisingly good, which is I think also a trend of many 2010s high grades, where in spite of the polycap ball joints, they do have a surprising amount of articulation, but it doesn't necessarily look the greatest, because in certain extreme poses and things like that, the parts will start to separate, which is most notable in the torso. If you try to articulate the ab crunch too much, it will start to like lift off of the waist, which does make certain poses look very unnatural or odd, but the articulation is very much present. In terms of the build, very much typical high grade. Pretty much all of the parts are going to be two halves sandwiched together with some minimal parts layering and things like the torso for the chest vents, but apart from that, there's a ton of hollow spaces all over this kit, very minimal inner frame, what you see is what you get, and most of the joints are facilitated by polycaps, with the only major joints not relying on polycaps in any way going to be the neck, the elbows, and the wrists. Apart from that, every bit of articulation you see on this kit is going to rely on polycaps, which do feel a little bit loose at times, but for a kit this simple in terms of its layout, I think it should do the job holding this kit stably for a long time. In terms of aesthetics, this kit does an alright job in the mobile suit itself, with the only major color inaccurate detail not covered by color correcting stickers being the insides of the thrusters on the backpack need to be painted in red, although the color correcting sticker for the wraparound parts on the chest vents that need to be in the same shade of green as the main armor tone of this kit is a little bit annoying to apply on, so that is also a part I would recommend you paint in yourself. The weapons are a very different story, with large swaths of the 6-tube missile launcher and the long-range beam rifle being entirely color inaccurate, and you will need to do a lot of painting on your part in order to get those weapons presentable and color accurate, which is very unfortunate, but it's also a very common trend with these 2010s high grades. And the GM Sniper itself, I wasn't really expecting the base mobile suit to not be super inaccurate because of, well, how simple the color scheme is. Seam lines are also rather good for the base mobile suit itself, with the vast majority of them being simply recreated as detail lines. There is one really nasty mold line I noticed wrapping around the top of the thigh, but that's nothing a little sanding won't fix. In terms of accessories then, this kit comes with pretty much everything you would expect it to. It comes with the basic loadout of the GM Ground Type, being 2 beam sabers as well as the 100mm machine gun and the same ground type shield that we've seen on the GM Ground Type and the Gundam Ground Type. Where this kit differs then, and the kind of main reason you would want to get this kit, is in its extra arsenal, which includes 2 new ranged weapons, the 6-tube missile launcher, which has been included in some other kits like the Slave Wraith GM Ground Type, and I think the Red Giant GM Ground Type might have included it, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, as well as, of course, the main star of the show, the long-range beam rifle, which is probably the main weapon that people are going to want to pose this kit using, just because, well, it's the GM Sniper, you're going to want to use it with its sniper rifle, and it looks great while doing so. The only thing that I would say is missing from this kit are duplicate hand option parts, with only one special trigger finger hand for the long-range beam rifle only for the right side, and one open expressive hand only for the left side. I do wish they would include a second one of each for the other side, just to expand your posing options, but apart from that, pretty complete accessory spread for the GM Sniper. In terms of articulation then, this is where the GM Sniper really does shine, where it has a very surprising amount of articulation, especially in the lower body, with a very extreme amount of ankle articulation, which again, in certain poses doesn't look the greatest because of the details that are molded onto the front of the ankle to model the pistons and things like that, where if you articulate the ankle in a certain way, you can just see where that detail ends instead of it properly extending upwards into the leg like it really should. But articulation is really excellent across the board. You can get this kit into pretty much any pose you would want to, especially on the ground, where it does look really great and natural in all these kinds of poses. So would I recommend this kit? Yes, if you can find it for around $20 if it gets reprinted in the future. Obviously, I would recommend to avoid scalpers if you can help it, but this kit is certainly worth the price of around $20. I got it for less than that, and for that price, I would say it is an incredible value. It really does everything you would want to. It doesn't really exceed expectations because it doesn't really have to. It does a great job representing the GM Sniper and everything it can do. If any part of this kit interests you, but you're not necessarily super into the color scheme or the long-range beam rifle, I would recommend the high-grade GM Ground Type, the high-grade Gundam Ground Type, or any of the high-grade Blue Destinies, where they all kind of do very similar things to this kit aesthetically and in terms of like posing and things like that, but aren't necessarily as monotone as this kit is, being completely in green. And if the Sniper isn't necessarily for you, all of those kits provide extra variety in terms of its arsenals that you may appreciate. So Yeah, the base model kit for the GM Sniper is excellent, and I would recommend you pick this up if you can find it for a decent price, and if the sniper rifle interests you. So that was my review of the high-grade GM Sniper. What do you think of this kit? Let me know in the comments below. If you like videos like these, make sure to sub notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. If you like this video, give it a like, and I'll see you next time for my video celebrating 1,000 subscribers with a huge special kit that I got just for the occasion. The Master Grade EXS Gundam Task Force Alpha version. So that was a kit that's been on my grail list for a really long time. I think I mentioned in a previous post that I picked up the Gundam Mark V in September as well, so I'll be taking a look at that soon as well. So plenty of interesting kits coming up that I'm really looking forward to building because they've been on my grail list for a while, but it may take a little bit longer to get the EXS video out just given how massive and involved that kit's going to be, but whenever that video comes out, I'll see you then.